This is a metal clatterbox, which is the same as all clatterboxes. The exception to that is that this is metal. So there's no paint to chip. It's a lot more rugged. It's not made out of wood that'll splinter. You just let it fall and pick it up, and a shovel if you want to. This is the devil can. It's used for gaining possession of small objects like rings, coins, and stuff. There's only a half a bottom in this can. A ring or coin to be dropped into the top, and then the can is angled properly so it would clank on the half bottom. There's a lighter wick arrangement at the top that had some cigarette lighter fluid on it, and this would set a fire. Then the can would be tilted slightly, letting the ring or coin slide out into the magician's hand and going on from there. Here's a color shot taken from a catalog, along with the jumbo Fano tube in the center and the crystal cylinder and chest on the left side. These two miniatures here are a collection of U.F. Grant props. They are manufactured by hand. Every piece is individual. They are a 1/12 scale, which means the tables in both of these are about as high as a deck of cards. They are incredibly detailed, as you'll see as the thing here unfolds. The two dove vanishes that you see in the center of the picture are actually made from separate pieces, cut out with a razor knife and balsa wood and glued together to form a box. The artist responsible for all of this is Gina James, who can be found at Bob James Magic. Gina has an incredible collection of small gizmos and gadgets, anything from little pieces of brass tubing to brass rods to chain with links so small you can hardly see it, and tiny animals that she's accumulated over the years from craft stores and so forth. Of course, all of the magic she has to make herself, but in the case of the stratospheres on top of the red table, I believe she said those are BBs that are painted. On the inside of the red table there's a piece of rope, which is really a thread. So you get an idea of the size of this. It's amazing how the stencil work on the Grant items she has duplicated by hand, and if you look very closely, I think you'll agree that there is a fantastic amount of detail. Okay, here we go. This next slide is a perfect example of Grant taking a product already on the market and adapting it for magic purposes. He used to sell to a gift company. One of their items was a toy box. The toy box was about 4 feet in height and very colorful. It had shelves on the inside if for some reason a child would actually want to put away his toys. Since everything was supplied packed flat, it was a simple matter to make the shelves smaller and to just cover a few inches on the inside front of the box. These two girls here are a bit larger than the real production girl. A small child could stand on the inside of the back and hold a black cloth in front of him, and behold, you have a black art production. These things were very reasonably priced and required only a little cooperation from a child that you could usually find a few minutes before the show. The door on the front hinged, and the design that you see here is the soldier design. It was actually on the outside of the box. The girl standing here is just holding on to a door. It's not attached to the box. However, the side that you'd normally see was red with the design being on the other side of the panel. This was also put out as a clown design too. It was called the guardhouse. This is the Buddha torture tube. It's basically a sword box where the swords miss the person on the inside. It's about 36 inches high. It's made from 4 pieces of aluminum that are bolted together at the corners. Now, if necessary, everything can be unbolted and will pack totally flat just to transport it. In actual practice, most magicians doing a platform show will just leave everything bolted together at the corners and throw it in the back of the seat of a car or a station wagon, put all your soft stuff, your flowers and so on in there. Each piece of aluminum has a slot, or actually many slots. They're cut out in it for the swords. And the thing on the top with the 5 holes is a wooden top that prevents the audience from seeing down on the inside, as well as being bolted to the sides of the aluminum, and it gives everything a good bit of strength. The 4 sides and the top are all attached together, but this arrangement here just sits on the platform. It's not attached to the platform at all. The platform has 4 casters, 1 at each corner. It also has a caster in about the middle, and this caster is positioned so that it takes the weight of the entire person. It's directly under their butt. This way the platform can be rotated, rolled easily, and so forth. And the 4 pieces of aluminum along with the top can be picked up to show it empty if you just put your hands in any 2 of the holes at the top. It's very light. You can pick it up and tilt it, carry the weight very easily on your hands, and let the audience look completely on the inside and see that it is empty. The sword holes are placed in very specific spots. We made a cardboard model and had a number of people sit in the cardboard model to determine exactly where the swords would go. And we noticed that since the person sits at a corner, there was a very obvious spot where we couldn't put any swords. Well, we added a few extra slots there on both sides, and also supplied with the outfit some fake sword tips. Now, the person going in on the inside would carry these sword tips with them, and as the platform was rotated to apparently show all was free and so forth, on the side that was away from the audience, the person just simply reach over and put the sword tip through one of the holes. It had a catch on it so it wouldn't go all the way through. Now we also supplied several sword handles, and the magician did the same thing. As he turned the platform around to put the swords in, he'd simply hang handles on these holes. Therefore you'd fill everything up. The magician and the assistant really had to practice this because it was necessary to put the swords, the real swords, to enter one spot and leave another spot. Everything was carefully orchestrated so that they really would miss the person and would actually fill up the inside. We supplied little labels that went on the inside, and magicians could practice with their assistants and either keep the labels or come up with another setup for doing it. But if the swords were put in where they were supposed to, it's a question of memorization and practice. Hey, you know, you got to practice some things. Everything worked out fine. Here's a shot of the sword tips, 3 different lengths. The little bumps on the left-hand side prevented the swords from going all the way through, falling all the way through. The assistant would carry these in with her or him. Here's a magician's part. Again, on the left-hand side, this was the hook that the magician would use to hang these on the outside of the apparatus. Okay, well, that's the Buddha torture tube by Grant. When money was very tight during the Depression of the 1930s, Grant put out magic kits. Now you have to remember that Jen was actively involved in marketing and inventing magic tricks for almost 70 years. He was operating out of his home in Pittsfield, Massachusetts at that time. And at that time, the 1930s Depression was in full bloom. According to Jen himself, people just did not have money. Hey, hit the History Channel, see what they have to say about it. Anyway, he started putting out secrets, and he sold them for 10 cents a piece. These were tricks written on a piece of paper with the effect, method, and presentation for a dime. Some people will do anything to survive. Now here you're viewing a rebirth of Grant's magic kits. In both forms of the kits, everything was supplied to the buyer, right down to all the screws and nails. However, paint was not included. In its rebirth, 4 kits were put out for a very short time. This is the Chest of Chew. It was a box affair, and the load would move from the inside of the box to the outside of the box when the door was opened. The door here is opened. The box has a big hole so the spectators can see all the way through the box. This is a gung-ho box. The silk is stuffed inside, actually in front of the gimmick, so you can't see the gung-ho gimmick here. This is a mirror box. This one is Presto Changeo. It's a cube made of wood, about 8 inches on a side, and it had a piece of masonite on the inside that was operated by a little tab on the bottom, and by moving the tab you caused the inside piece of masonite to hinge from one side to the other, effectively changing one item for another item. Now these were all good tricks. They worked. Nice hardware was supplied, and it was operated on the same as a model airplane kit, where you put the pieces together and you paint it and then you go fly it. Only a few of these things were made because In this day and age, which is probably about the 70s, but the same thing was true now, they were a real money loser. It was alright if you were operating by yourself and you had to do this to make money and your time was your own, but by paying an employee to count screws out and count little pieces of wood and so forth and so on, it wasn't a very profitable thing. Anyway, those are a reproduction of 4 of the Grant's kits. This is the Marianne illusion. It's a black art production of a person using a flash pot to cover the dropping of a black cloth panel. Then the person makes their appearance. Now this trick started off with a metal coat rack. The coat rack is one of those tubular metal ones, a very lightweight, that's assembled by the buyer. On each side from the top, front, left, and right run a long aluminum bar about 3 feet long. These bars are angled back and then they're fastened together. At this rear point where the 2 pieces meet, there's another piece of aluminum going down to the floor, and it supports them in the vertical position. So looking down from the top, you'd have a triangle. There was a large cloth triangular black bag that dropped right over this. Of course, the bag naturally had no bottom. It goes over it kind of like a cover goes over a toaster. The person would stand in the rear corner holding the black cloth in front of them. On cue, a flash pot would fire. And by the way, this photograph here is really an accurate shot of the amount of smoke and the distraction created by the flash pot. Well, of course, then they would drop the black cloth and make their appearance. Now Grant added ribbons to the front of it hanging down, and these made sort of like a little curtain of ribbons. It was probably about 8 of them. They were all different colors. So color was forced on the spectator, and the person appearing would be dressed in a costume of that color. Now this is a good example of finding something that's already being manufactured and making a nice illusion out of it. The entire thing would pack flat. If somebody wanted to take everything apart, it would literally fit in the suitcase. Of course, it need not be disassembled this far between shows. It was priced very reasonably. I think somewhere well under $100, and that's in 1970s prices, perhaps even lower than that. You really didn't need an assistant. You didn't even need to use the ribbons. If you were really stuck, you could draft a volunteer to help you, and maybe bring the birthday kid or anything along that line out of it. Called the Marianne illusion. This picture here is one of Marianne King's daughters, and I'm sorry about the crack in it.